Gasps filled the room. The fact that a human could even attempt such a thing in life was unthinkable. Vothric, however, did not look angry. He looked delighted. "Fascinating," he murmured. "You could have tried to kill me, yet you did not. Why?" Daniel's smile did not reach his eyes. "Because it's not time yet." The room fell silent. Some guests chuckled nervously, thinking it a joke. Others felt an unfamiliar emotion crawl up their spines, unease. Vothric simply leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "Then I will wait for that moment, human. And when it comes, I hope it will be as entertaining as I imagine." Daniel bowed slightly. "You won't be disappointed." Far above the estate, beyond the artificial sky of the Xelari homeworld, a hidden human fleet drifted in the void, waiting for a single signal. The days in Vothric's estate passed slowly, but Daniel remained patient. He learned the routines of the guards, the habits of the nobles, and the weaknesses in the estate's security. Every night, he listened to the distant hum of the energy shields and memorized the layout of the palace. He was surrounded by enemies who saw him as nothing more than a pet, a lesser being. They thought humans were weak. They had no idea what was coming. Vothric continued to test him, pushing further each day. The Xelari noble enjoyed breaking lesser beings, watching them submit to his will. But no matter how hard he tried, Daniel never showed fear. He obeyed commands, yes, but there was something unnerving about how he did it. Too calm, too controlled. The other alien pets were either terrified or desperate to please their masters. Daniel was neither. One evening, Vothric hosted another gathering, this time for military officials. The Xelari Empire thrived on war, and these commanders had crushed countless species under their rule. To them, humans were a joke, a species barely worth enslaving. Vothric, in his usual arrogant tone, introduced Daniel to his guests. "This one is different from the others," he said, sipping his golden drink. "No fear, no begging. Perhaps he is broken in a different way." One of the generals, a scared warrior with glowing eyes, sneered. "I've killed humans in battle. They die too easily." He turned to Daniel. "Do you know what your kind is called in our war records?" "Soft meat." Laughter filled the hall. Daniel stood still, his face unreadable. Inside, he burned with rage. But he let none of it show. He wasn't ready yet. The general leaned forward. "Tell me, pet, do you think you could fight a Xelari warrior?" Daniel met the alien's gaze. "I don't think. I know." The laughter stopped. A strange silence filled the room. The general's amusement faded, replaced by something colder. "Bold words," he growled. "Let's see if you can back them up." Vothric smirked. "Yes, let's." A circle formed in the middle of the hall. The general removed his heavy war coat, revealing his muscular frame covered in thick armored scales. He was twice Daniel's size, stronger, faster. The fight was supposed to be a joke, a way to humiliate the pet. Daniel stepped into the circle, rolling his shoulders. He had waited for something like this. A test, a moment to show them a glimpse of what humanity was capable of. The general lunged first, moving with the speed of a trained killer. Daniel barely dodged, feeling the wind of the strike pass inches from his face. He moved, twisting to the side, using his smaller size to his advantage. The Xelari was strong, but his movements were predictable, aggressive, direct, overconfident. Daniel struck, not with brute force, but precision. His fingers jabbed at a nerve cluster near the Xelari's ribs. The general snarled in pain, staggering back. The audience murmured in shock. No human should have been able to hurt a Xelari warrior. The general roared and charged again, this time with more caution. Daniel weaved through the attack, using the alien's strength against him. He ducked under a heavy swing and delivered a sharp elbow to the back of the warrior's skull. The Xelari stumbled, dazed. Vothric watched with fascination. His pet was not only surviving, he was winning. The general, humiliated and enraged, activated his wrist blade. The energy weapon hummed to life, glowing with deadly blue light. The crowd gasped. This was no longer a test. This was an execution. Daniel remained still, his eyes locked on his opponent. Then, with lightning-fast reflexes, he moved. He dodged the first swing, barely missing death. The second attack came, and this time, Daniel grabbed the Xilari's wrist, twisting hard. The alien howled as the blade was forced downward, right into his own thigh. The warrior collapsed, gasping in pain. The room was dead silent. Daniel stepped back, calm as ever. "Soft meat," he said, his voice low. The words hung in the air like a challenge. No one laughed this time. Vothrik's expression was unreadable, but there was a glint of something in his golden eyes. Excitement. "You continue to surprise me, human," he said. Then he turned to the guards. "Take the general to the medics. He'll live, barely." The guests whispered among themselves as the wounded warrior was dragged away. This was not how the night was supposed to go. A human had stood against a Xilari and won. That was not supposed to be possible. Daniel knew what this meant. He had just painted a target on his back. But that was fine. He wasn't here to hide. He was here to prepare. Because soon, the real fight would begin. Far above the estate, beyond the glowing force fields of the Xilari homeworld, a silent message was sent across the stars. A single pulse of data, encrypted and hidden beneath layers of false transmissions. And on the edge of the system, hidden in the darkness of space, a fleet of human warships received the signal. The tension in Vothrik's estate had changed. Before, Daniel had been nothing more than an amusing pet, a rare human who refused to break. But after the fight with the Xilari general, things were different. The way the guards looked at him, the way the nobles whispered as he passed, it was clear. They no longer saw him as harmless. Now, they saw him as a threat. Vothrik, however, seemed more entertained than ever. Instead of punishing Daniel, he rewarded him. The Xilari noble brought Daniel closer, allowing him to sit near his throne during gatherings. It was a game to him, a test. He wanted to see how far this human could go before he finally snapped. Daniel played along. He had waited too long for this moment to act recklessly. Every day, he learned more about the estate's defenses, the guard rotations, the security codes, the underground supply tunnels. He was getting closer to what he needed. One evening, Vothrik summoned Daniel to his private chambers. The room was dimly lit, filled with the scent of expensive alien incense. Vothrik sat in a chair carved from the bones of some long-extinct beast. He studied Daniel with sharp golden eyes. "You are different from the others," Vothrik said, sipping his drink. "Most humans beg. You do not." Daniel remained silent. Vothrik chuckled. "Tell me, pet, what do you want?" Daniel finally met his gaze. "Freedom." Vothrik laughed. "Freedom? You have more freedom than most in my service. You eat well. You live in comfort. Is that not enough?" Daniel's expression remained neutral. "No." Vothrik leaned forward. "Then perhaps you are more foolish than I thought. Or..." He paused, considering something. "Perhaps you are waiting for something." Daniel's heart remained steady, his breathing slow. "Waiting for what?" Vothrik smirked. "That is what I intend to find out." He stood, circling Daniel like a predator studying its prey. "I could have you executed for what you did to my general, but I won't. Instead, I will give you something far worse." Daniel tensed, but only slightly. "You are no longer just a pet," Vothrik said. "You are a gladiator now. Tomorrow, you will fight in the arena. If you survive, you will fight again. And again. Until you are nothing but a broken thing crawling in the dirt." Daniel didn't react. Inside, he felt something close to satisfaction. He had been waiting for an opportunity to fight in the open, to gain the attention of more than just the nobles. The arena was his chance. "Do you understand, pet?" Vothrik asked. Daniel nodded. "Yes." Vothrik grinned. "Good. Then let us see how long you last." The next morning, Daniel was taken to the arena. It was an underground pit, surrounded by towering walls lined with energy barriers. The crowd above roared, hungry for blood. Sci-fi warriors, alien mercenaries, and nobles all watched from their high seats. Daniel was given no armor, no weapons. Across from him, a massive beast was released from an iron gate. It was reptilian, with 4 arms and thick, armored scales. Its mouth dripped with venom, and its claws could tear through steel. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. A test of strength. The human versus the Razak beast. The crowd laughed. This wasn't a fight. It was a slaughter. The gate slammed shut behind Daniel. The beast snarled and charged. Daniel moved. The first strike came fast, but he rolled to the side, avoiding the razor-sharp claws. The beast swung again, and this time, Daniel jumped back just in time. He studied its movements, its breathing. It was powerful, but slow, heavy. He had one chance. The beast lunged, aiming to crush him with its massive weight. At the last second, Daniel leaped forward instead of away, grabbing onto its thick neck. The beast thrashed, trying to throw him off, but Daniel held on, wrapping his arm around its throat. The crowd gasped. Daniel's grip tightened. He pressed his arm against the beast's windpipe, cutting off its air. It roared, clawing at him, but he moved with its struggles, avoiding the strikes. Seconds passed, then a minute. The beast's movements slowed. It collapsed, twitching. Then, finally, it stopped moving. Silence filled the arena. Daniel stood, breathing hard but unharmed. He looked up at Vothrik's private balcony. The Exiluri noble watched him with a fascinated smile. Then Vothrik clapped. The crowd followed, their cheers mixed with disbelief. A human had just done the impossible. Daniel wiped the sweat from his forehead. He wasn't done yet. This was only the beginning, because high above the planet, hidden in the void of space, the human fleet received another signal. The time was almost here. The arena fight had changed everything. Daniel was no longer just a pet, no longer a curiosity for the Exiluri nobles. He was something else now, something dangerous. The way the guards looked at him, the way the other aliens stepped aside when he walked past, told him enough. He had shaken their confidence. Humans weren't supposed to be this strong. They weren't supposed to win. Vothrik, however, was more amused than ever. The Exiluri noble had always loved games, and Daniel was now his favorite piece. He had Daniel fight again and again. More creatures, more warriors, each stronger than the last. Some fights lasted minutes. Others were over in seconds. But every time, Daniel walked away the winner. And with each victory, the whispers grew. The slaves in the estate, the other alien pets, the merchants in the lower city, word was spreading. They had all seen the Exiluri as gods, as invincible masters. But now, they saw something else. A human standing against them. A human winning. Revolution starts with a single crack in the foundation. One night, as Daniel sat in his holding cell beneath the arena, the first piece of the real plan fell into place. The door slid open, and a figure slipped inside. Exiluri, but not a noble. This one wore dark clothes, his face hidden beneath a hood. A rebel. "You're causing quite the problem, human," the Exiluri said in a low voice. "Vothrik doesn't realize it yet, but you're making people think. That's dangerous." Daniel leaned forward, studying him. "And you're here because—" The rebel hesitated, then pulled out a small device, a communicator. He placed it on the ground between them. "Your kind is out there, in the void. We intercepted transmissions. A fleet. They're coming." Daniel didn't move. He had suspected it. He had been waiting for confirmation. The rebel continued. "They won't get past the planetary defenses. The Exiluri will see them coming. They'll be slaughtered." Daniel finally spoke. "Unless the defenses go down first." The rebel smiled. Exactly. It was the opportunity he had been waiting for. All this time, he had been gathering information, memorizing security layouts, learning where the estate's weaknesses were. Now, it was time to act. But it wouldn't be easy. The planetary defense grid was massive, controlled from the central citadel in the capital city, impossible to take from the outside. But from within, that was another story. You'll need a distraction, the rebel said. Something big, something to keep the guards and nobles busy while you slip out of here. Daniel thought for a moment, then smiled. I think I have an idea. The next day, he fought in the arena again. Another warrior, another auxiliary eager to prove that humans were weak. But Daniel wasn't focused on the fight. He was focused on the timing. Because in the lower city, a rebellion had just begun. Explosions rocked the streets. Fires spread through the merchant districts. The auxiliary empire had spent centuries keeping its slaves and conquered species afraid, but Daniel's victories had given them hope. And hope was dangerous. As the alarms blared, Daniel made his move. Using the chaos, he overpowered the guards near his cell, taking one of their weapons. He moved fast, slipping through the corridors of the estate, disabling cameras, avoiding patrols. He knew the layout better than anyone now. By the time the nobles realized what was happening, it was too late. Daniel had already left the arena, and he was headed straight for the citadel. The city was on fire. Smoke rose into the sky as explosions rocked the streets. The lower districts, once filled with broken slaves and quiet fear, had erupted into chaos. The rebellion had begun, and in the heart of it all, Daniel ran. He moved through the shadows, past burning market stalls and shattered transport vehicles. Auxiliary guards rushed through the streets, weapons raised, trying to restore order. But they were unprepared. They had ruled with fear for so long that they never considered what would happen when the fear broke. Daniel had seen it before. Oppressors always believed their control was absolute, until it wasn't. The citadel was close now, its towering spires stabbing into the sky. That was his target. That was where the planetary defense grid was controlled. If he could take it down, the human fleet would have a chance. A patrol of auxiliary soldiers blocked the entrance, their golden armor reflecting the fires around them. Daniel didn't hesitate. He moved fast, ducking low as the first shot burned past his shoulder. He rolled forward, grabbing one of the fallen rifles from a dead guard. Then he fired. The first auxiliary dropped before the others even had time to react. Daniel used their hesitation, moving with precise, brutal efficiency. He wasn't stronger than them. He wasn't faster, but he was smarter, deadlier. In seconds, the patrol was down. He didn't stop. Pushing forward, he reached the citadel doors and placed the stolen clearance badge against the scanner. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a hiss, the massive doors slid open. Daniel slipped inside. The interior of the citadel was silent, the usual hum of operations drowned out by the chaos outside. He moved quickly, following the blueprints he had memorized during his time in the estate. The control room was deep within the structure, heavily guarded. But the auxiliary were distracted now. Their world was burning. Daniel reached the main hall just as another group of guards spotted him. They raised their weapons, but he was faster. A single well-placed shot hit the control panel beside them, causing the security doors to slam shut. They were trapped. He didn't need to fight them. He just needed to keep moving. He reached the command center. A single auxiliary officer stood inside, his uniform pristine, his golden eyes wide with disbelief. "You," he hissed. "The pet." Daniel raised his rifle. Not anymore. The officer reached for the alarm, but Daniel fired first. The auxiliary fell. The control panel was in front of him now, glowing with data. He scanned the system, searching for the defense grid controls. Then he found it. A single switch. He pressed it. Outside, high above the planet, the sky changed. The massive energy barriers protecting the world flickered, then vanished. And in the darkness of space, the human fleet moved. Daniel stepped back from the console, his breath steady. He had done it. But it wasn't over yet, because behind him, the door opened, and Vothrik stepped inside. Vothrik stood in the doorway, his golden eyes burning with something between amusement and rage. His usual smug expression was gone, replaced by something colder, calculating. Daniel tightened his grip on the stolen rifle, stepping back toward the control panel. The planetary defense grid was already down. His mission was done. But he wasn't naive. This wasn't over. The auxiliary noble took a slow step forward, his hands clasped behind his back. "You surprised me again, human," he said, voice calm despite the chaos outside. "I underestimated you. That was a mistake." Daniel didn't answer. He was watching Vothrik's every movement. The way his muscles tensed, the way his fingers twitched slightly, a warrior's instincts. He wasn't just a noble. He was dangerous. "You think you've won," Vothrik continued. "Your fleet will arrive soon, yes. But do you truly believe the auxiliary empire will fall so easily?" Daniel let out a slow breath. "Not easily, but it will fall." Vothrik chuckled. "You sound so sure." Then he moved. Fast. Daniel barely had time to react before Vothrik was on him, striking his arm and sending the rifle clattering to the floor. The next blow came hard, a fist slamming into his ribs. Pain shot through Daniel's side, but he didn't let it slow him down. He twisted, throwing a punch of his own. Vothrik dodged. He was faster, stronger, but Daniel had spent years fighting for survival. He didn't need to be stronger. He just needed to be smarter. Vothrik lunged again, but this time Daniel was ready. He ducked, sidestepped, then drove his elbow into the auxiliary side. Vothrik grunted but didn't go down. Instead, he lashed out, grabbing Daniel's throat and slamming him against the console. "You should have stayed a pet," Vothrik growled, tightening his grip. Daniel's vision blurred. His lungs burned. But then he saw it. Behind Vothrik, on the main control panel, was a large red lever. Emergency lockdown. With the last of his strength, Daniel reached out and yanked it. A loud alarm blared through the room. The security doors slammed shut, sealing both of them inside. Vothrik's grip loosened in surprise, just enough for Daniel to break free. He gasped for air and stumbled back, raising his fists. "You locked yourself in with me," Vothrik laughed, shaking his head. "A foolish move." Daniel smirked, wiping blood from his lip. "No, I locked everyone else out." Vothrik's eyes narrowed, and then the first explosion hit. The human fleet had arrived. The building shook as orbital strikes rained down on the auxiliary capital. Outside, the sky was filled with burning ships and falling debris. The Empire's forces were crumbling. Vothrik turned, his confident expression finally cracking. He had been so sure of his power, so sure of his control. But now he was just another ruler watching his kingdom burn. Daniel took his chance. He launched forward, slamming his fist into Vothrik's jaw. The auxiliary staggered, but Daniel didn't stop. Another punch, then another. He fought like a man with nothing to lose, like a man who had spent years waiting for this moment. Vothrik tried to fight back, but the tide had turned. With one final blow, Daniel sent him crashing to the floor. The auxiliary noble coughed, blood staining his perfect robes. He looked up at Daniel, and for the first time, there was fear in his eyes. This isn't how it was supposed to be," he muttered. Daniel stared down at him, breathing hard. "Welcome to reality." Then he turned and walked away, leaving Vothrik to watch as everything he had built was reduced to ashes. The auxiliary empire had fallen, and humanity had just begun. "You said the battle was over." Smoke rose from the ruined auxiliary capital, the towering spires shattered by orbital strikes. The once mighty empire lay in ruins, its soldiers defeated, its nobles either dead or in chains. The planetary defense grid was down, and the human fleet had arrived, their ships casting long shadows over the broken city below. Daniel stood at the edge of a destroyed balcony, looking down at the chaos. Fires burned in the streets, but they weren't just signs of destruction. They were signs of something new. Freedom. The rebellion had won. The sound of approaching footsteps made him turn. A group of human soldiers, clad in advanced battle armor, moved toward him. Their weapons were raised, scanning the area for threats. But when they saw Daniel, their expressions changed. One of them, a woman with short-cropped hair and captain's insignia on her shoulder, stepped forward. Daniel Carter. He nodded. His throat was dry. He hadn't spoken to another human in years. She lowered her weapon. "You're a hard man to find." Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Yeah," he said. "Been busy." The captain smirked. "So we heard. You took down the auxiliary defense grid, crippled their ruling class, and helped start a planetary uprising. You're a damn hero." Daniel didn't feel like a hero. His body ached, his mind was exhausted, and he still smelled like the arena where he had been forced to fight for his life. But he wasn't a slave anymore. He wasn't a pet. He was free. "Come on," the captain said. "Command wants to debrief you, and I think you could use some real food." Daniel hesitated for just a moment, looking back at the city one last time. The auxiliary had ruled here for centuries. They had treated humans like lesser beings, like pets. And now, their empire was dust. A part of him wondered what would come next. Would humanity build something better? Or would they make the same mistakes? He pushed the thought aside. That was a problem for tomorrow. Today, he had won. Without another word, he followed the soldiers toward the waiting ship. The engines roared to life, kicking up dust and debris as the ramp closed behind them. As the ship lifted off, Daniel allowed himself to lean back and close his eyes. For the first time in a long time, he could finally rest. But deep down, he knew this was just the beginning.